to take you all through. One is to look at Malaysia. Of course, you can also reflect it from your own country perspective, where you are now in relation to your country's goals. In Malaysia, we have a Vision 2020. Our Vision 2020, we aspire to become a developed nation. So in the first part, I will try to assess where we are in terms of achieving our Vision 2020 goal. And then, when you look at a country's development potential, this is where, when you look at the future of the country, you try to estimate or try to anticipate what's the growth prospects, growth challenges, and from the growth challenges and growth prospects, you will be able to identify the different industries, those that are leading industries, lagging industries, as well as those that are on the verge of emerging industries that you are engaged in. And importantly, these are all driven at the initial stage by innovations, by research and development that create all this new, either in terms of discoveries or new products and services that will come about eventually, contributing to the creation of new industries, the emergence of new products and services leading to new sectors of the economy. And what are the key what you call areas that you need to focus on. So in this, I will try to look at it from an economist perspective, but of course you also can find important ways of how you can do research to help stimulate or even accelerate a country's growth potential. How you can contribute towards the growth potential using an economic framework analysis. And then of course in Malaysia we have an 11 Malaysia plan, which is a 5-year development plan. All countries normally will try to develop some kind of long-term roadmap or strategic milestones that they aspire to achieve as part of the proper planning. And here in Malaysia, we have a document we call a 5-year plan. That's now in the 11 Malaysia plan. That is from 2016 until 2020, over the next 5 years. To look at some of the strategies, some of the policies that will be pursued under this plan in order to achieve the target of becoming a developed nation by 2020. So that will be my third part. And then finally, I will voice some concluding observation as to whether Malaysia, as you all know, Malaysia, we all try to become a high income or developed nation by 2020. So we'll conclude with some assessment as to whether we can achieve it within the next 5 years. As you all know, all economies have different views, and of course, you yourself, those who have worked here in Malaysia, will also have formed their views as to Malaysia, as to where we are and what is the gap, how much we need to do in order to become an advanced economy. So let me start off with where is Malaysia now in relation to Vision 2020. Now, what is a developed nation? This is where all countries aspire. All countries, we want to get rich as fast as possible. We want to be developed. This is part of the so-called the development ethos, or part of what societies are all about, trying to become more advanced and more developed as we progress. Now, if you look at Malaysia's Vision 2020, there are many different parts, both social, economic, even religious, as well as political. All these are different aspirations that we have created under this Vision 2020. Just for example, in Malaysia, because we are a multiracial country, there's a very important component. We want to become a one Malaysian race. How we define Malaysian, that's one under United Nations. And then we also want to be, in terms of the mindset, become more psychologically liberated, secure, and developed society. So these are all very, very simple ideals, expression of ideals. But they are important. They are important to have a complete document or statement of what you want to be in 2020. So in this Vision 2020 statement, you'll find all the different aspects of development in terms of whether it's social, psychological, political, and then of course in terms of economic achievements. So importantly, what we want to focus on is actually to become a progressive society that is fully competitive, dynamic, robust, and resilient. This from an economic perspective. We want to achieve this end goal of become competitive with all the advanced economies. So if you look at that economic perspective, you can see that Malaysia, using a framework of analysis, basically trying to understand where are the sources of growth. You'll find that we have different models of trying to explain how to develop or how to push for growth. At the core, if you look at the core area, the core model is actually a production model, what they call inputs equals to output. So at the very core model, we have these proximate sources of growth. That means the growth, sources of growth is actually a function of whatever inputs, can be capital, labor, land, or even management resources, plus productivity. You give you the sources of growth, which is equivalent to what a company, similar to a company or corporation or even an industry. They try to put all these resources together, organize your production, distribution, and then sales of all your products and services, and try to sell what you call great products and services as part of your ongoing production that counts towards your so-called total output of value of services, goods and services in the economy, which is your so-called your gross income, national product. Similar to a company, eventually you want to be able to grow your total sales or total revenue. Eventually you contribute and you add up all the firms and all the industries, then you actually get up to the total output of the economy, which is your total value of goods and services that you produce, and you want that to grow. You want that to grow, and this is a very, very basic model. Very basic model of the so-called core model of growth that we try to identify. Okay, so what we call the basic ingredients are all your inputs, and then importantly your total factor productivity, which is the residual arising from all your production, all your inputs, and those that cannot be explained by inputs can be attributed to your productivity. And this area, this productivity area, is also a very major area of research to try to when the researchers as well as students to try to understand what are the drivers, what are the determinants of productivity in the economy. Either you can look at it from the national economy, or you can look at the industry level, or even at the firm level. So you have different dimensions of analysis that you can focus on your research, either at the different levels of analysis. But importantly, we try to identify in business world, we say this is an X factor or the efficiency factor that contributes towards your competitiveness, your differentiate your competitive advantage from your other players in the industry. And the ability to do that, it is actually, from an economics perspective, is very narrowly defined. But in the business world, it can be very broad concept in terms of what contributes towards this X factor, this productivity or efficiency. It could be a leadership factor. It could be your ability to create a niche for yourself that no one else is able to replicate. So it could be your intellectual property rights. It could be your so-called your royalties, your technological licensing and all that. So this is one area of very big research at the firm level in terms of understanding what are the sources of growth that drive the particular firm. And then of course, a firm or industry doesn't exist by itself. You have to operate within an environment. Your environment that consists of population, your demographics, your financial sector, your overall international economic environment, your so-called your various sectors of the economy, income distribution, that determines your spending power and all that. So these are the wider sources of growth. And then importantly, as the economy or the country becomes more developed, you'll find that institutional, these are the deep sources of growth that actually covers all kinds of so-called areas that are very difficult to measure. This cover quality of institutions, quality of leadership, the social political arrangement, the social contract. All these are part and parcel of the quality of institutions that actually have an impact on growth, on the sustainability of growth. So all these are part of so-called what I call the deep sources of growth. That's why you see as the economy develops, you find that the institutional quality becomes very important in terms of explaining the so-called high income or the sustainability of the institution, maintaining not just law and order, but importantly, the quality of institutions in terms of growing your human capital, especially the so-called education system in the universities that are able to generate the kind of continuous pursuit of knowledge and creation of new ideas, theories. And this is where we all fit in terms of producing graduates that have this continuous pursuit of knowledge to expand the country's sources of growth in terms of creating not just new knowledge that can be translated into commercial products and services that are in demand by society. So that's the concept of overall concept of growth. You can find various research topics that you can help that will be very helpful in terms of if you are going into an area of management, looking either in terms of national economic management or particular industry or banking system or even at the firm level. So it's a very rich field of research. Now, in terms of defining what is high income, we follow what the World Bank defines as high income, middle income, as well as low income. They have a classification that they use to basically look at the different countries and then use that to determine the amount of aid, the type of aid that is needed by each country. So what's important here is that they have what they call the US dollar per capita income, which is the total value of goods and services produced in the country divided by the population as a measure of wealth of a particular country. So in defining that, because we have different exchange rates, different so-called rate of growth, different interest rates and all that, so different inflation rates. So what we need to do here is that they have benchmark against certain countries. So what they have chosen is, they have chosen US, Japan, Europe, and the UK pound to benchmark your value of your exchange rate. So you use that, and then they use this inflation, relative inflation, and then of course your GDP growth that will be adjusted for the differences in the exchange rate, differences in inflation rate to arrive at the measure of per capita income that is universally comparable. That is, if you compare and benchmark across countries. In fact, this measurement is one of the most widely used by policymakers as well as economists and development analysts to actually do cross-country studies. So this is a very useful concept that we use to benchmark. And we have, if you look at Malaysia, how we have progressed, this is the low income range, lower middle and upper middle income, as well as eventually what we hope to achieve is a high income. And if this is Malaysia's growth trajectory, so if you are interested in doing research on how a country grows, then you have to look into the different sources of growth. So like in the case of Malaysia, we have different phases of growth that we can characterize. It started off as a highly agricultural-based economy, and then moving from primary sector to secondary sector comprising largely of manufacturing, course, we started all these light industries, then moving on to heavy industries, eventually going up to so high value advanced manufacturing and services. So all these are part of our so-called shift, the transformation, the structural change happening in the economy. That actually with growth, you need structural transformation to sustain the growth. Because you cannot, for example, if you're a large agricultural producer, you cannot be continuously be an agricultural producer and hope to be a high income economy. And you can't do that. So you have to progress in terms of moving up back to the value chain, producing higher value goods and services. And the whole point of the education system is actually to create the kind of training, the kind of opportunities for the country to move up the so-called wealth or income ladder. So as you can see here, we are somewhere very close to the threshold for being classified as a high income economy. And of course, this is the next 5 years that we are targeting to achieve, whether we can sustain the growth rate that enable us to cross this threshold or become a high income country. So our scenario, of course, this is more for market economists or market analysts rather than serious academic research. You can also do a serious academic research into looking at how the trajectory coming up with your own model. You can create your own concept or your own model, and you can do further research and create a dissertation out of it. But if you, for simplistic so-called planning, what you need to do here is to look at the different growth scenarios. And this is more applied work in terms of trying to understand how country can achieve its growth target. So by having a target, then you, of course, you can work out the different scenarios. And what goes into the scenarios is up to the various assumptions that you assume for all the different inputs, the different conditions, and importantly, some so-called very important exogenous factors, those fixed factors that contribute, for example, to productivity growth. So this is the way that. Can I ask you a question? Sure. Okay. Let's make it interactive. This is a question.
There's three things on there I'd like to ask you about.
Sure.
This one is using gross national income, which includes overseas investment rather than gross domestic product, which is within the country itself. That's one. I don't know why you have the second. The second one, of course, that the per capita income glosses over entirely the question of income inequality, whether that's a fair measure. Because if you've got a tiny Gulf state with 5 people who are earning millions each, and the rest of the population get nothing, you don't have any measures of the kind of general development in terms of infrastructure development and baseline, that sort of thing. The third one is, of course, you're very optimistic here because you don't have any risk. The low growth is still growth, isn't it? There's no ambition of any possibilities. It could actually go to decline.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's some interesting question that we can discuss.
So yeah, just read the question. Not just quickly say that the first question. You can explain. Read what the question that is raised now.
Oh, okay. Okay. Dr. Bill Walker has asked the first question. Let me give you the third question since that's still fresh on my mind. The
GNI was
okay. GNI is basically the national income, that is the gross value, total gross value of the goods and services produced by the country, irrespective of the location. That means Malaysia could be owning assets in the UK, the US, and these are all counted towards the computation of the wealth of the country. So this is GNI. Whereas GDP is just domestic. Only the goods and services produced within the country is considered as part of the gross domestic product. So the difference here is that, of course, if you export your capital, if you invest overseas, then of course GNI will be higher.
Which doesn't necessarily reflect back to the country.
Yes, you will not, which comes to the second question of income distribution. Who owns what, what proportion? And that's part of the measure that we use when we use the Gini coefficient to reflect the unequal or how the disparity in the income and distribution. That's very important because to have a high income, to be an advanced economy, one of the key metrics that we showed earlier is actually equitable distribution of income. So that's why in the first chart, when we first began this talk, the different attributes of being a developed nation is very, very broad. So it actually covers the equality of income distribution so that you can create a harmonious society, because the country is very unequal. Then you have all kinds of social problems arising in the economy, like what we see during the Arab Spring, which is actually a result, partly a result of social inequality. And your other question is
the risks.
The risk side, I think, is very interesting because in the case of Malaysia, we have so-called growth factors that we see as part of the secular trend, that means the emerging, the continuing trend. Like, for example, in terms of labor supply. Labor supply, because of being a young population, the number of working age population will continue to increase. So that assumption basically suggests that if we are able to provide employment to all the so-called new work entrants, then we're not likely to experience a growth stagnation. But there's still a risk. Growth stagnation can be due to political and other social instability, other forces at work rather than just purely economic forces. So it could be a bad leader. There's so many evidence of bad leader in the world. It can create a stagnation or recession or continuous decline in the economy. You see what happened in Haiti, Myanmar, Zimbabwe. All these are countries that have rich natural resources, but because of poor management, because of corruption, because of all this mismanagement, you get into problems of growth stagnation, which is a risk. Of course, this risk we have to take classes under Dr. Walker.
Malaysia had those problems until import 1.5 million foreign workers.
But if your research topic has any elements of risk, I would suggest that you rope in our Dr. Walker to provide you the expert guidance.
No, I just want to get it clear. GNI and GDP. Yes. You're talking about the country produce goods and services.
Yes.
No. Does this GDP include the foreign investment for our case? GNI is include the foreign investment for Malaysia. But how about the foreign investor in Malaysia?
It is the income.
Income, yeah.
The income produced by your assets. That means we only consider the foreign direct investment comes in as part of the so-called capital formation.
Yes.
So it's counted as part of GDP. But in terms of what repatriation, that is your return on your labor, that means you have Malaysians working overseas, their salaries will be counted when they repatriate. Their profits when they repatriate the economy is considered as part of the GNI, gross national income. How much the country earns.
So that when these foreign investor FDI in Malaysia, they get more profit.
But when they take back, then our GNI will be actually lower than the GDP, which is the case for Malaysia because we have a huge stock of foreign direct investment, and they repatriate their salaries and wages. They also repatriate their profits.
Yes, yes. Yeah, for Myanmar case is different. Whatever profit you cannot repatriate by Malaysia is different. For some countries, like for example Philippines, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, all these, they have very, very high repatriation of their salaries and wages because of a lot of their because of remittance. They work abroad.
So in the case of Malaysia, our GDP every year that government declare one, it's not really a reflect that the income per capita for Malaysia. It's GDP. Yes. GDP. Yes, GDP itself produced not really can reflect. It doesn't consider the outflow as well as the inflow from Malaysia. But importantly, I think in terms of economic analysis, you look at countries' progress, you have to look at different shocks because economic cycles. Every economy has go through a cycle. We have a growth cycle. So this growth cycle, of course, for young, fast-growing economies, is not so obvious. The boom and bust cycle, very strong, up then down. So this cycle is also part of very important research topic for either for businesses or for economists to try to understand what are the factors, the forces driving the boom and bust cycle. So that has been a topic of research for many, many years. But I think for developing countries, not so well researched. So there's still a very, very strong potential for you to actually go deeply into this topic of business cycle and how businesses, especially when we talk about new businesses, the emerging industries where because of disruptive technology, a lot of business models will need to be reconfigured or redefined. So that's very interesting, another area of research in terms of the top of management.
One other question, sorry, before you okay. The income per capita, I don't know whether Malaysia has done any research on income per capita for the capital city, Kuala Lumpur, or Penang.
What they call they have regional GDP, but only by state, but not by city. By state. So their per capita GDP for Perak, Penang, and so you can still get those data because those data are actually very important for business analysts because they want to look at purchasing power. So purchasing power, if your business that is located in certain areas, you want to know what is the purchasing power based on the income. We look at income and that's still the best measure. Of course, income, as you all know, is not a complete measure. It's still a better definition is actually your wealth. Your wealth will include all your assets and liabilities.
The global city in Malaysia only focus in KL, not Penang.
Okay, so in all your countries that you come from, you will be able to see when you plot your GMI over time, you'll find you can use that to analyze to what extent your country is on the what we call the growth spurt. Growth spurt, that means you can maintain GDP growth. You can sustain it depending on how you can define it, maybe over a period of up to 7 to 8 years. And that would be your so-called your boom period. And then of course, if you don't go to a bust, it will continue like China has gone through a 20-year boom with non-stop economic growth. So that kind of boom also is also a big topic of research in how countries, especially China, a big economy, can sustain such a long period of growth. So this is another big area for research. But if you look at for Malaysia, let's say if you want to close the gap to become high income, what we need here is only a per capita GDP growth of 3% increase per annum over the next 5 years to actually hit the high income target. So similar for all the other countries, and you can chart the growth to see where you are now and then try to look at the factors of growth. Now, one very important issue that when you talk about economic development is the middle income trap. So I think for some countries, like Malaysia, even Vietnam, eventually Vietnam also will be entering this so-called middle income trap, whereby you're not able to reach a high income and you experience what we call as growth stagnation, like some Latin American countries. Over the 5 decades, their growth is still hovering at below the high income threshold. So their growth has actually stagnated. They are not able to cross the high income threshold like what some of the tigers, the Asian tigers like Singapore, Taiwan, Korea, and they have managed to cross the high income level within a short period of time of less than 20 years. So in the case of China, of course, it's only 9 years since when you benchmark it at the same starting point, at the same level. The only 9 years they have really close almost halfway. So over time, if you maintain this growth rate, the slope actually indicates the rate of growth. You find that they should be able to close it within the next 15 to 20 years. So for China, the question now is whether they can sustain the present growth rate, they will be able to catch up with the world's largest economy, become the world's largest within the next 15 to 20 years. Of course, that gives a lot of concern to but growth process is something not very straightforward. It's not a linear path. There's always hiccups along the way, and it's very interesting because it presents opportunities to look more deeply into these sources of growth, get sources of growth we can research it from national level or at the micro level. And importantly, micro level, the behavior of so-called, like for example, during the recent financial crisis, is actually the microeconomic, the behavior of bankers, behavior of borrowers, and created all this sudden big drop in the recession, or what we call the result of crisis, financial crisis, collapse of the credit market, collapse of the housing market, and resulted in a very deep recession. So all these are possible so-called areas that need to look into when we look at developments. So there are different periods of graduation. All countries have so-called their own unique development path. Some are faster, some are actually shorter. But over time, you find that ASEAN countries, those that are caught in the middle income trap. For Malaysia, we are at the middle income for over the last 51 years. Over the last 51 years, we have progressed to become upper middle. So we are over the next, we have 5 more years in order to reach a high income. Thailand just reached their upper middle only for 7 years. Malaysia, we are in upper middle income for 15 years. So we still have 5 years more, and we would have progressed into a high income nation by 2020. The bars basically show the number of years we are in that category. So Malaysia, we only spent almost 3 decades in the lower middle category, 15 years in the upper middle. And by 2020, if we achieve high income, then we would have spent 20 years in the upper middle income countries. But if you look at some of the Asian countries, they only spent 10 years being the upper middle income. Hong Kong 27 years, Taiwan only 7 years, and of course South Korea also another rapid pace of growth. Right?
How to explain the South Korea community of Taiwan are a little bit can be compared to Malaysia, in terms of complexity to smaller country, and how to explain that South Korea that was lower in the 80s in terms of economy and development catch up very fast, and in the 90s managed to go over and faster than Malaysia.
If you want to look at, let's say you are given a choice of only one choice, one factor to choose, I would choose human capital. The quality of human capital that make the difference in terms of those quality. Basically, they have a very strong technological base. And that also does not explain everything, because there's
Malaysia was as advanced as South Korea 30 years ago.
Correct. So the institution in South Korea, the quality of the institutions, play a very important part. And of course, you have other factors influencing. That's why it's a very complex process. It's a very interesting topic if you want to dive deeper into researching human resources. We actually predict Vietnam to be the next, because of very strong emphasis on education. Your human capital development. Because the last time when I visited Vietnam, that was almost 20 years ago. Population, the people that I interacted, they were also very eager to learn, and they also hunger for knowledge. But very weak institutions. Yes, that is rare. That's why human capital is a necessary but not sufficient condition. There are you need other conditions to be in place, like having good quality institutions, having good leaders, and being open to absorbing ideas from the world, being open, liberal, and transparent market economy. All these are very important factors that if you are looking into those green management, you may want to consider as part of when you do up your design, research design. If you happen to look at this topic, perhaps some of the dimensions, some of the non-economic dimensions become very important. The non-economic dimensions is something that we are still grappling with. There's a huge area of unknown that we need to understand. Okay, so what's growth potential for Malaysia? Every country, when we look at long-term growth projection, economies will actually look at it from the supply side. Because demand is something very unpredictable, but supply, capacity, the ability to produce the goods and services, we can project slightly more certainty. That's why we always look at the supply side for long-term forecast. So long-term forecast, we use the factor model, the so-called production approach model, whereby we look at the country's factors of production, the labor, capital, and what is the assumption for the total factor productivity growth. So in the case of Malaysia, we have different scenarios. In this case, 2.2% labor growth. And the capital investment, the rate of investment, we assume around 8%. And then you put in your, based on historical trend, your total factor productivity. And then you, on average, in the base case, you can actually hit 5.1% for Malaysia. That's our potential growth. So for those market forecasts, those looking at Malaysia's growth potential, however you tweak it, if you look at the different factors of growth, Malaysia has the potential to grow at least 5%. Because that's open to a lot of because of the methodology of forecasting or projecting a country's growth potential. But the different techniques will produce different results. So these are some possible guide references that you can put together to try to understand the country's, like every company will have rated capacity and actual capacity. So this is more like rated capacity of country's ability or potential to grow.
No, I'm just wondering, growth then in US dollar or in British or in
okay, this is growth in terms of whether it's currency neutral. It's a growth in the real quantity. So it sure can be immaterial. So these are all based on constant price. It means adjusted for inflation. So it's actual. Yeah.
Because upward is all.
So if you look at Malaysia's potential, you put all these scenarios with the low, moderate, and high productivity, and then the different assumptions for your labor, low labor scenario, moderate, high, and then the different investment rate, then you get this what I call growth derivation. So depending on what is the demand conditions, how hard you work, you want to climb higher, you have to do more, you get fitter and stronger, and build up your muscles to climb up. This is where 78%, which is actually within the realm of possibilities, because we have in the early 90s, during the pre-Asian financial crisis, we were hitting 8 to 9% growth per annum for almost 7 years. But of course, on hindsight, we realized that over-investment, over-lending, there was an exuberance in the stock market. All these were part of the contribution. Some of the growth is not quality growth. It's actually growth based on excessive debt or leverage, based on over-investment in the property sector or over-capacity. Like China now, they're trying to shape almost 60 million of iron and steel workers, 60 million of workers. So that's a kind of, if you have high growth in one period and it's not sustainable because of your over-investment in certain sectors or over-leverage and all that. So I hope this economic, for those who are working on so-called science and engineering, it's not too boring, but it's something that part of the overall economic development. But very important, we have what we call the stylized development effects or stylized development trends. As the economy develops, you always move from an agricultural-based economy, like for example, in the case of Malaysia, agriculture's share of GDP, that is the total value of goods and services that are attributed by 20% of the economy. So now it has declined to about less than 10%. That's the structural change that's happening as the country progresses. And you'll find that manufacturing from less than 10%, it actually peaked at around 31%, slightly above 30%. And then it started to stagnate. And of course, this is the point that it stagnated was when China entered into WTO. The World Trade Organization. China became the largest exporter of manufactured goods. It affected Malaysia's exports. So Malaysia's industrialization or the manufacturing sector growth were actually on a decline, and now it's stabilized at around 23% of GDP, which is actually much lower than the more industrialized economies like Germany. Germany still has a very high share of manufacturing in GDP. It's like more than 30%. So some of these silent facts will suggest that this is where opportunities in terms of jobs, in terms of businesses, and all depend on the shift or understanding this structural shift. So, like for example, services. Services, in the case of Malaysia, there is currently accounts for about 55% of the economy. In advanced economies, in advanced countries, services sector actually make up close to 70 to 80%. So it's part of the so-called development trends that we find as a country becomes more developed, it will shift towards high value services. So it's from moving from primary to secondary and then tertiary. So this is the style aspects of development. And then if you look at the other factor that you have to look closely is the volatility of growth. How stable the growth side. So like for example, in the case of manufacturing, you have very strong growth and relatively lower volatility compared to the mining sector as well as the agricultural sector. So we try to measure not just the growth performance, but also in terms of the so-called volatility, or in layman's terms, is actually risk. How risky in terms of going very fast in 1 year and then going down the next year. So that's a kind of, from the supply side, we try to understand the characteristics, the quality of the growth patterns. And then it's the demand side. Demand side also, here is the various sources of expenditure. You find that in advanced economies, private consumption usually accounts for 70 to 80% of GDP. So that's more for advanced economies. So when we do long-term forecasting, if we envisage ourselves to be in an advanced economy, then we'll actually use the share to actually try to develop our long-term trends. So as you can see in Malaysia, share of private consumption is only 52%. Private investment is close to 70%. So there's a lot of scope to actually push up this spending, private sector spending. And how to push it up, that is part of the so-called the sources of growth. We try to analyze what actually determines the country's consumption patterns, what drives the consumption pattern, what drives the investment patterns. So all this, if you break it down further, actually presents a very broad and so-called extensive range of topics that you can look into. And also in terms of your topics, you can actually fit into one of them. Like in the case of services, Malaysia has established itself as one of the so-called our financialization in terms of development of the finance industry has been one of the most successful stories of Malaysia's development. We have a very big, huge financial sector. And part of it is driven Malaysia's growth. So in that case, our services sector, the key services sector are finance, and then of course wholesale trade, wholesale and retail trade will be the other key and professional services. So all this will fit into the overall patterns of growth for the country. And then of course, if you grow, you have to look at the sources of the markets, the demands, the domestic demand, not only for small economy. Just to produce solely for domestic markets, unlikely that you can grow very, very fast. So once you reach your limits of growth, then you have to expand. In order for expansion, you have to look at the overseas market. And this is where you can see Malaysia's structural change in terms of from huge concentration of primary products, so palm oil, timber, and oil and gas, shrinking, and then increasingly all your other high-value, high-tech products and services become more important in terms of export structure, what you export, what you can sell. So the current, what we see here is that Malaysia, if you look deeper into each of these trends, for example, the electricals industry, you find that Malaysia, we have capitalized on the so-called the IT the computer industry, the growth of the computer industry. So we were among the largest producer of laptops, computer parts and components. So that makes up a large part of the electronics industry. But unfortunately, we missed smart devices boom, and that's where the current IT boom is happening in terms of all the smart devices, the Internet of Things, all the sensors, all those. This is where we hope our science and technology students, or those who are engaged in higher hard sciences, who are able to drive this part of the industry, because those are very more technologically demanding kind of industries, which is what we are lacking.
I want to ask one question. I don't know whether it is right or not. Does this paradigm shift is due to the cultural change in Malaysia?
Not cultural change. This is driven purely by market forces.
But still, if we talk about like 1970s to 80s, we have focused on the primary products. But if we talk about the cultural shift, I used to relate it like Chinese people are there now, and this kind of thing I'm talking about.
Okay,
they are more towards tech.
Correct.
People,
you're right, because when you look at economic change, you always be accompanied by changes in the so-called employment structure.
Exactly.
People, the workers, and all that, they have different occupations. So Malaysia's history is very interesting, because when they first started the tin mining, the plantation, the road building, they were short of workers. So they had to bring in migrant workers from China and from India over in Malaysia. That's why we have three major races. So they had a very interesting history, whereby plantation brought in the Indians, Chinese came and helped the tin mining. So it's all very ethnocentric.
This is what from where I'm relating that initially it was like pretty much focused on the agriculture and farming and so, but then they brought some people, and then the paradigm is being shifted from agriculture to electronics,
and then now to services. As the country becomes wealthier, the demand for services will increase. So you'll find that it's all driven about by the changing preferences, changing income, and then of course changing societal demands and preferences. So
this means that cultural paradigm has an influence in the development of a country.
So normally when we do in business, we have what we call the steeple or steep analysis: social, technological, economic, environment, and political. Steep analysis. We have to do a growth opportunities or risk analysis. Political forces. So the culture dimension is very interesting. So you can actually spend your entire business looking at the culture dimension of this. I had a friend who finished his PhD just purely looking at the particular unique ethnic group within the ethnic community as a few ways highly so-called segment. You're just basically looking at how they adapt to the local environment and see how they check, how they evolve over time, how their culture change, how the socio-economic status change, how they adapt to the environment. So we gave a thesis for sociology.
So it's quite easy job for them to import people from a developed country and then get a developed one.
Yes, this is where the Malaysian model is very highly dependent on foreign investment as well as foreign expertise. And this is in fact one of Malaysia's open secret. FDI dependent. And very important, we attract all, not just from UK, but also US, Germany. German investments, very huge Japanese investments. So it's a geographical diversification of investment risk by ensuring that your sources of FDI is actually spread across the world. So that's in fact, if any advice you give to any developing country, open up the economy. So of course, a country will face many challenges. So some of these challenges actually require human capital to try to either work directly on the problem or to develop ability to overcome some of these challenges. So if you look at some of the challenges for Malaysia, now that we are at the so-called stage whereby we consider ourselves as caught in between, because on the one hand we have very advanced economies like Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, producing those high-end products and services, high premium where there are margins. But on the lower end, we are competing with so-called countries with cheap labor, excess labor. They are able to produce goods more cheaply than Malaysia and have this kind of competitive advantage. So we are competing with, in fact, some products competing with Vietnam, competing with Indonesia, all these. So these some squeeze in between the high end, more technologically advanced economies, and the lower end, the lower cost products of all these labor surplus Malaysia. In a way, and that's what they call the middle income trap. So in order to break out, we have to compete with our more advanced economies. So one of the key challenges is actually the problem of what we call deindustrialization. Whether we have a premature deindustrialization, that means you get old before you become rich. So Malaysia is facing that because we still have a demographic dividend, young population, but we are aging very, very fast, as I will show you another chart. So very the rate of population aging is rising. So as you can see, there's a decline in manufacturing. So there's some evidence of a hollowing out. That means industries shifting up, industries losing their competitors, and they are not being replaced by the more competitive, the higher value industry. So you have a slowdown in your overall manufacturing sector. So that's one, and some of the key factors would be like low productive growth, very low R&D, and then you are not able to innovate and create your own patterns. The diversification of products is so very limited. It's a narrow range of products that you produce, and also corollary is actually very few well-paid jobs, and then which is a fact for Malaysia because of skilled labor. World Bank has found that wages are depressed for all the skilled labor for almost a decade now, and then of course some limitation in terms of, importantly, how we leverage on ICT to quality and competitiveness of our products and systems. So these are some of the challenges, and of course part of the problem of we only have a few products that we are good at, or we have competitive advantage. And if you look at our products, a lot of it we do not have competitiveness based on this measure of competitive advantage. So we have economies that develop various measures. So one of the research projects could be we could actually come up with your own measure, your own index to try to measure the different dimensions of either competitiveness or either development elements. So you can see here, those we are competitive are actually the lower end products, for example, rubber, plastic, resource-based products. We still have some competitive advantage in the electrical industries, but by and large, the larger group of the products and services we do not have the competitive advantage. So this narrow range of products and services could be eventually a hindrance to reaching high income. And of course, investment is a key driver of building up your country's capacity. If you don't have investment, you're not investing in increasing your product. The economy is a very high rate of investment. Of course, on hindsight, they also have problems with over-investment in certain sectors like iron, steel, perhaps real estate. So be very careful in terms of eventually it's not sustainable in short as imbalances imbalances either in the oversupply of certain products or oversupply in the real estate. So that's one challenge. The other challenge is low entrepreneurship. This is also another topic, especially for our PhD management. We are into entrepreneurship. Is one big area that we can look into because it's open. It's an open canvas for you to look how you cut it in terms of cultural dimensions, social dimension, and, all these mindsets. You can look into psychological, behavioral kind of dimension to try to understand what drives entrepreneurship, how entrepreneurship can be successful, how we can compare the different environments that you see in the advanced economies. Silicon Valley compared to our multimedia super corridor, mass corridor that they have to create. So you can see Malaysia very low in terms of formation of companies. Formation of companies is one indicator as to how dynamic the business environment is, because we have a lot of people trying to form companies like in Taiwan. The aspiration of a graduate is to be their own boss. That's the aspiration. Whereas our Malaysian graduate, our aspiration is to have a nice, comfortable office, be a manager or supervisor. So it's a different mindset, cultural perspective that causes the different design, the different structure of the economy.
It's also actually quite bureaucratic here. For example, in England, if you form a company by signing a form paying £25, that's it. In this country, it's legally.
They're trying to. They have actually set up a one-stop center.
Really?
Yeah, thanks to Permando. Permando has been doing a very good job. Yeah, they have made it. That's why our Malaysia's ranking in the World Bank's ease of doing business has been not because of all the measures taken.
It's not this kind of, I think it's cultural stuff that
okay, this factor I think is a make or break for Malaysia in the future, because without supply of scientists, engineers, technologists, we won't be a high income economy. So in fact, we will encourage more students to sign up for our science and engineering degrees rather than business management. But of course, there's never oversupply of high quality PhDs. so it's still a gap that we need to fill. Importantly, I think for cross-country comparison, Malaysia's number of R&D personnel as well as the amount of R&D spending is actually very low. So this is also another area that we are not able to create the kind of indigenous technological capabilities. So that's one of the constraints which MAS was actually set up. MUST was actually set up to meet that kind of need for very high advanced graduates in engineering and science. But increasingly, I think the emphasis is shifting towards what I call the STEM: science, technology, maths, and engineering, STEM. Okay, so if you look at Malaysia, we have the 5-year plan, because this 5-year plan will take us in the last leg, the next 5 years. We have all these so-called strategic trusts. So each of these strategic trusts, we have different initiatives and programs. The idea for having a plan is actually to mobilize both the civil servants and then importantly set the direction for the private sector as to where the country is heading, what are the priorities, what are the policy imperatives that they can actually follow, or if they are well connected, they can actually make use of opportunities that are presented by this. So in terms of infrastructure, developing human capital, like human capital here we have for Malaysian students, we have migrated to produce 16,000 PhD students by 2020. So this is part of this human capital development. So if you look at some of the rationalization, some of the needs of the country, immediately these are some economic issues. For example, government-linked companies, there could be some crowding out. That's also an area that we can look into, and then whether the environment, the business environment is competitive. So some of these are highly concentrated in the sense that a few companies, a few firms actually dominate the industry, and that leads to low level of competitiveness, low level of competition to drive efficiency and drive growth. Because it's a very important factor is actually competition. Without competition, hard to sustain growth without competition, because competition have result in enhancement of internal efficiency and growth. So this is another area. So we have a number of strategies. One, of course, concentrate on pushing for higher productivity growth, lifting the lower 40% of the household, and then shifting towards a more technical, German type of education system, focus more on industry training, what we call educational type. And then, of course, we're also trying to look at green growth. Green growth to actually fuel our next so-called move towards higher end sustainable industries. And then all these are part of the building competitive cities, different cities in Penang, Johor Bahru. So all these are part of the game changers. And then if you look at the next thrust, re-engineering growth, you have transforming services, energizing manufacturing, modernizing agriculture. So all these are part of very broad-based planning to set up the direction for change in each of the sectors. Okay, I won't go through some of these. It's more for if you're interested to look deeper into each of the strategies you can actually contribute, because these strategies will provide ideas to the private sector to think about opportunities for public-private partnerships, or even to look at initiatives that we can get government support. So all these are.
It's just a McKinsey that looks like.
That is part of the consultant agencies and the BCGs. Okay. So I won't go through some of this. There are more in terms of those are interested to go into details as to how Malaysia will reshape its economy over the next 5 years. So, and also if your research falls into one of these areas, you can look into what's been planned for the country over the next 5 years, and to see if your research area falls directly into some of the priority areas, then of course you can get a lot of government support, or even become the reference document. If your findings are, you can even implement some of your findings, they can be translated into policy actions. Services, again, because we are at the stage whereby even the slowdown in manufacturing, very important push towards higher value services. So, more knowledge focus, high income jobs, we can create that. That means we have to create actually high value services that people can pay a premium. So that's a challenge. And then, of course, besides that, you have to actually create a very attractive environment. Basically, very low regulatory burden, very low transaction costs, and very supportive environment. So basically, we have to.
You said about education, but it's also a disconnect. I think aspiration, the knowledge of but they're not really up to education.
Yeah, we have the education master blueprint. So we have a very nice set of plans. The challenge is actually execution. As in all business or industries, execution is the key.
And as with all plans.
But as they say, if you don't plan to fail, but you fail to plan. That's a cliche.
But also it's in Malay, there's a word for planning.
Yeah.
We share too much of political development.
Yes, but very important, R&D, design testing, engineering and scientific services. Because manufacturing, we are going through a fourth industrial revolution. We are going to industry 4.0. these are the new emerging so-called disruptive technologies that are coming to manufacturing, 3D printing. All these are going to reshape a lot of industries. So for those who are in engineering, this is a time for you to actually take part in this fourth industrial revolution. You all know what's the first industrial revolution? Steam, water. Second, electricity. Yes, electricity drove all the mass production. And the third, yes, computer. The fourth, this is the one. The fourth one is actually still not very clearly defined, but it's all about your drones, your smart devices, all your sensors, all these devices that connect stream to
AI. You can say that. AI.
Yes, correct. AI, artificial intelligence, very important. So a lot of scope for in-depth research for PhD students. The fields that open up in terms of opportunities, great new frontiers, new knowledge of this, as well as commercialization opportunities. So it's a sector, of course, we are still looking at whether increasing the pace of legalization. So the reason why is that because of protection. Protection actually brings a lot of complacency. You actually very slow in attacking practices. You tend to take a very lackadaisical attitude towards improving cost efficiency and all those, or including this mention, you won't bother because you're not affected. You assume that everything is a constant. But once you introduce, you open up the industry, that's where the challenge comes because of competition. Okay. So these are also some strategies that we see for manufacturing. So for those of you projects that are manufacturing, you can take a look at some of the strategies that the country has in place. Then of course, very important to actually, in the case, immediate need is actually to reduce our dependence on unskilled foreign workers. So that's where it also reflects the Malaysian economic structure is not that high end because of its large number of unskilled foreign workers. That means we are in actually sectors that are actually mostly labor intensive.
There's a point that since 1980 until now, in terms of industrial skill of nature sustainable there, it's very effective.
Yes, that's another interesting because of difficulties of automation. Like palm oil harvesting, difficult, you cannot harvest. But you look at the advancement in automation in agriculture sector in the US, they have gone into intensive agriculture using all machinery. Correct. Machinery, even sensor, delivering water to the individual plant, they already have developed the ability to do all this.
So essential food is very cheap in Australia and UK.
So the abundant opportunities for you all to look into how we can enhance, improve our so-called automation or use of artificial intelligence. So if I were to start again my PhD, perhaps look into AI. But unfortunately, I don't have the capacity that the training wasn't there in terms of being able to develop AI. But that's a way to go. Nowadays, you find AI almost every aspect of our life. You can use AI. Okay, food and construction, all this we have in the plan in terms of what we try to do. And then, of course, SME sector also another area for those in management. Studies, I think SME is now the key focus of governments all over the world. Not just because of generating high income growth, but also income distribution. You want to encourage more players, more industries, more firms to actually grow, and that will help to equalize income across the country. Because SME provides more opportunities. If you have large corporations, then they tend to be concentrated in a few companies. But SMEs then you can spread their prosperity across the economy. Okay. So I will not go into some of this. Just a point to note here is that for those who are looking at combining geography in the study, cities now has become an important attention for economies looking to growth. because now we have this concept of agglomeration. When you have people concentrated in one area, there will be greater circulation of ideas, there will be greater learning spillovers, there will be greater support services within the so-called smaller area where you can actually spur growth at a much higher rate than you disperse all over the country. So the concentration of growth now is we're talking about cities as the growth centers. So developing clusters of industries, this will be part of the current push towards creating more growth, higher rate of growth of economies.
Why is Penang excluded?
Good question.
Good question.
So competitive cities, because competitive cities also attract a lot of foreign companies, multinationals to locate their headquarters in their cities. So that's also a big area, big challenge. Cities now are competing not across country but across among the cities to attract some of the big firms and multinationals to locate their headquarters. So finally, I think let me just conclude with some observations. As you know, all your thesis, you have to come up with some big conclusion. One thing is whether Malaysia can achieve, for this purpose of this points, whether Malaysia can achieve a high income economy by 2020. If you look at the various supporting factors like demographics, we do have a young population, the so-called demographic twist, whereby the number of dependents, number of working age population starts to decline. That's where your number of dependents will increase. Dependents are defined as those between the age of 1 to 15, and then from age 65 and above, these are the dependent groups. Then the rest are working age. So you find Malaysia over the next up to 2020, we have a so-called this age group, which is the fastest growing, that will drive the economy. The age between is 20 to about 50. This is the rate of growth for each of the age group in terms of the growth numbers. But we're also facing a rising number. The growth rate of the so-called most senior citizens, and they're also rising very fast. This presents opportunities to cater to the needs, but at the same time, we do have so-called labor surplus in this working age category to sustain economic growth. And then importantly, we have to increase our participation rate. Participation rate means that there are more of your males and females all working. Our participation rate is actually very low. It's around 60%. Still has a way to go to what we see in so-called these high-income countries. And then, of course, look at the long term, you also have to look at what the economy in the short term. And for example, we have a property bubble, because eventually the property bubble is too big and it collapses, then you have a growth stagnation, then we have to be worried about that. You also have to worry about housing affordability. There's one beyond the reach of a large number of working age population. Household debt level is hit now from 83, now it's only 85% as of end of last year. So it's relatively high. And then of course our fiscal balance. These are some of the short-term challenges. But what we see here is that Malaysia will still be highly dependent on what's happening in the external economy to drive our prospects. Similar to, I think, most of the countries that we see who are opening up their economy, who are adopting a more liberal, open approach to sustain growth to attract foreign investment. So the key drivers will be the change. Big change here is actually the different trade agreements that try to foster regional cooperation under AEC, our ASEAN Economic Community. We also have the partnership agreement, trans-Pacific partnership agreement. Those are some of the so-called external developments that will influence, that will shape our trade policies and trade opportunities. The other one is actually very important in terms of technological driver of growth. This ICT, incorporation of ICT in the various industries and businesses, especially logistics. In fact, across all industries, we are able to incorporate this technology, especially use of internet and other so-called devices. We will be able to disrupt the existing industries and create new business models and result in emerging industries, the high-end industries that provide you more job opportunities as well as being able to pay higher wages. And this disruption will be happening across all sectors as technology drives down the cost of chips and all this. And then, of course, very important, globalized environment. We are becoming more in borderless world. This, we have heard this 30 years ago and still continuing. It's becoming even more important. So, with that, very important, increasing specialization. We have to become more specialized because of competition. And then, of course, competition, we have to be more specialized. So, there are some advantages and disadvantages of this specialization. One advantage is that we become very dependent on one another, which is good for social stability. But when you become too specialized, if you're left on your own in an island, then you're not able to survive. So there are pros and cons, but nevertheless, that's where you are heading. It's a globalized environment, one world reality. Okay, so but if you look at our growth opportunities for Malaysia, we have a growth rebalancing between private sector shift towards from public sector shift towards the private sector. That is encouraging private sector as an engine of growth. And then we have shift towards manufacturing, as well as very important upgrading of our industries, upgrading our education system. Also another area, producing more PhD graduates. This is another key policy goals. In the external environment, of course, we have to capitalize on the opportunities that are presented. So I think my conclusion here is that I think over the next 5 years, we will likely hit the target because it's based on natural progression of our existing growth rate, based on the existing sources of growth. We would be able to achieve that high income definition only, because there are so many other dimensions of the economy in the next 5 years, plus or minus 1 to 2 years, plus or minus. But more important conclusion here is that we can achieve high income by 20, but the convergence, that means catching up with the other more advanced economies, that will be tougher because they have gone so far in terms of their per capita income. So the convergence will be tougher. Once we reach high income, I think the chances of sustainability will be higher. Richer people are less prone to fighting with one another. They would like to reap the benefits of high income. So we need to have a more harmonious, peaceful society, or become economic animals rather than social political animals fighting over ideologies. So with that, I'd like to open up for some, perhaps a couple of questions or answers that you may want. This is more an economic development, so just to have an appreciation of that. It's good to have an appreciation of your own individual countries, growth prospects, and then see how you can fit in. Either in terms of research thesis or your future career or your research interest. So if there's an alignment in terms of what the country needs, then of course there will be so-called complementarity in terms of what you do and what the country needs. So that you don't have this problem of mismatch.
Okay, just like in terms of 2028, right, the GDP grow 3% gradually, and for the next 5 years, you achieve the goal. But you take the consideration of the high inflation in Malaysia,
These are real growth rate, inflation adjusted.
Inflation adjusted.
Your high income growth, your real after adjusting for your inflation.
The government figure, the inflation, not the actual those figure.
Is what measured as department statistics. There's a huge mistrust of government statistics. But if you look at the methodology that we use, it's actually based on internationally accepted practices.
Anyway, it wouldn't help about your personal salary, right? There's a different indication about it. So that's the other thing, right? How is it distributed within the society? Right? That overall is not, can be a few now who learn all that.
Okay. Any other insights or comments, feedback, questions? Relate?
No,
no
relation in that sense, because I get the feeling from what you said, yeah, you're relatively confident, yeah, in the next 5 years, but on the other hand, we have those threats, right? And now we see specifically one important threat is on the income side of the commodity, right? So where still there is a strong dependence for Malaysia, right? Wouldn't that hamper or even jeopardize the this 5-year goal, right? So, and yeah, we are not talking about plus 1 or 2, that we are actually talking about plus another 5 years, right? And the other question would be, and that is probably one of the biggest risks for Malaysia, is MIT, right? And also was raised by the economists, right? So that there is a huge threat for Malaysia that is going into a recession, right? So with that also remaining are developing like a Latin American country.
Yeah, the main worry is growth stagnation or stagflation. Your stagnant growth and high inflation.
Stagflation. This is one thing.
That's a key challenge that we have to avoid in order to reach high inflation. Anyone else has if not, thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you. Okay, the right person is on the next one. They will not.
Very well, thank you everyone for your attendance, and thank you, Dr. Yen, for this interesting, useful, and effective presentation. I hope you enjoyed. For those, maybe you are having a study based on this film, that I hope it is useful for your research work as well.
Does Dr. Yen share the information? Just some of the slides we use.
And also, I would like to use this opportunity to welcome to Professor Dr. Ben for being with us today evening. Thank you for your coming. And before we go to the next part of our today's agenda, which is your presentation, I'll give you a break in 10 minutes. But going to have tomorrow, we have the morning session. I will come here and share with you some procedure that I was supposed to present today, but tomorrow I will present for you. And we have a presentation. My friend, Mr. Eckhart, is going to present his progress report, and Ms. Huiwei, our PhD student, Louise and Chen. And also we are having an open session, which also we provided some refreshments for you, and also our executive committee will join us. And this is a good time. You can catch up with each other, maybe exchange your business card and know each other, talk to our management team, and be more friends with your counterpart. Okay, thank you. And after 10 minutes, we will come back again and we will continue the session. Thank you.
Very good. Let's
Yes, that's good. That's now it can be a bit
mãi là đi từ 1 đến 7 mà đến 1 đến 3 thì nó đến cuối năm ba là các bạn mua nhưng mà nó 1 đến 7 sẽ đi đúng rồi bây giờ tôi nói là một phút bây giờ luôn trong cái thời gian này luôn nó chắc chắn rồi rồi á khi mà ông ban nộp tiền cho người ta thì nó sẽ làm hết những việc này cho mình để nó làm gì để có nghĩa là nó đi nộp hồ sơ cho mình rồi người ta sẽ cho cái gọi là cái visa ở đây rồi là rồi nó mới cái này nó mới được trong 6 tháng rồi thì mình mới nó mới gửi hồ sơ về cho mình gửi ra về cho mình thì đến cái ngày mà mình đi qua đây là 27 nè thì mình sẽ đến không ở khi mà nó gửi cho mình xong thì nó sẽ làm cho mình ra cái làm gì tự nó sẽ đi nó xin cho mình cái xin vô ăn chưa có một cái quan chức mình sẽ không biết nha thì khi mà nó có cái này á thì khi mình đến qua đây đó mình đến Malaysia đó thì mình sẽ đến cái chỗ với theo chờ cái người của nó đến để bàn giao mình với lại nó với lại immigration á là mình là sinh viên của người đó rồi thì mới được visa nếu như mà mình đến visa đó có nghĩa là mình vẫn đi qua được nhưng mà cái này mình có 2 nên là trước 2 tuần thì nó nói mình cho mình cho biết cái thông tin về cái website để nó tự mình ra đón mình cái này tại mình đi vô Malaysia theo cái sinh viên chứ không phải theo việc là tourist đúng không? Rồi ok như vậy thôi tóm lại là bây giờ mình sẽ mua vé hôm nay ông ban sẽ nói chung là ông ban sẽ học cho mình không biết gì ông transfer cái tiền cho mình rồi đó ông transfer thì nó sẽ làm cho mình rồi đó rồi chỉ 4 tháng thôi này nó có cái lịch 6 months mà thì mình bây giờ tháng 3 nè tới đó là tới tháng 7 nè tới tháng 9 vẫn còn được nó vẫn 6 tháng nhưng mà thì cái đó đầu tháng 1 15 tháng 1 gì đó thì cũng không thành vấn đề là mình đó nó nộp cho mình trong cái dòng này rồi sẽ dòng thứ 3 rồi nó không được thì nó trong thời gian lần nữa em đi qua là 27 nè em về là 37 mùa đổ như đợt này nữa như đợt này nữa nhưng mà bây giờ mình không thích này mình đi bây giờ Em đâu, nó đâu có cho em vô
We got
làm
going to Ho Chi Minh.
việc.
Where are you going?
Em về em nói là
They allowing you, are they allowing you?
Now, yeah.
Còn khi mà ghét chưa luôn
No.
phải là
For the night,
nhưng mà cái thời gian
that's like all
nhiều cái bữa tiết kiệm chi phí là thôi lắm đi từ nhà
nhưng mà nói phải đi tới chẳng phải là ở đâu không còn 2 giờ
đúng là bây giờ là đi ngang qua những dụng
con nó cái tay
Correct practice.
cái dụng đúng
nó không quay cái đây nó quay cái đây
I'm not sure about that. I thought I said that. Unfortunately.
đầu cái đường hàng của những hàng của
No, maybe
đó là do là
after this,
thôi em rồi đi 20 ngày bây giờ biết là mấy ngày đó mà đi chơi chỉ có bé hết chơi cả nhà đi
mới vừa đi tháng 4 mới đi tháng 3
Yeah,
xong thì đi tháng 4
also,
cứ thẳng đi làm
this is very good. And more people like want
bây giờ là chỉ bằng để liên hệ về một cái hai chị em bỏ cái số lượng ngàn này và thì là các con đi qua đây hai chị em qua đi mấy ngày
because it's a
Nếu mà như vậy á, 29 học xong 29 á, là làm sao đó bạn nào có được vé đó là tốt về luôn. Đâu về đi cả
Ở Sài Gòn rồi.
đi Sài Gòn không nghe
Mà con có vé không?
năm 9 là 6 năm học xong là tốt. Xong rồi nếu mà
So everyone, you're ready to start? Okay, good. So I would like to invite Mr. Franklin. He is our PhD student in management. I would like to invite him to come and present his progress. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I would like to thank Reza for giving me an opportunity to share the progress so far in his PhD. Okay, let me start with some acknowledgements. This journey, as I say, a PhD journey, started not now, it's 5 years ago, basically. And the difficulty I had was everywhere I went to, I wanted to do a PhD, I went to a university, they asked me, can you submit a research proposal? And I'm like, what proposal? I don't know, is it? Come on, you got to have a problem, is it? Get a problem and then do a research. I said, what problem? I don't have a, the problem is I don't have a problem, is it? So everybody's telling me, get a problem. And I was like, what problem do I have, is it? So, so that was a difficulty. So they will submit your research proposal and then they will choose you, is it? The thing I like about MUSA is they said, okay, it's okay. Don't need to have a research problem. Sit down together. We'll come up with a problem for you or your research proposal. Okay? And actually, that started off with we had a session in somewhere in October, and I would like to acknowledge some of my people who have really motivated me in this research. Of course, Professor Joy, he is my supervisor. Dr. Prem, Dr. Reza, those who have conducted the seminar, they showed me how to come up with a research proposal. Dr. David, who is one of the presenters, helped us understand what is a research proposal, how do you develop a research proposal, how do you come up with the one. So they helped me to understand the problem. So I got a problem. Okay, everything starts with a problem. Okay, so they helped me to have a problem.
And you are thankful for that.
Yeah, I'm thankful for giving me a problem today. All right, so they asked me, what is it that gives you curiosity? Now that's the key thing. That's the key word I took away from the seminar is what makes you curious? Okay? And that is the start of the research, what we call a proposal. Okay? Now I would like to share with you my ideas. These are raw. I'm sure a lot of mistakes. You find a lot of potholes there, I think. But please bear with me. This is all work in progress. The research topic that I've chosen is an empirical study on M-commerce, challenges and opportunities in Malaysia. Okay, also, I've been told by my supervisor to make it a bit exciting. That's why I put the word empirical, to make it. They say if you're doing a PhD research, the word should be big, it should be like, otherwise it's just like a master's degree. So, probably like what Dr. Prem said, I might have to change that again, over the period of time. Now, my name is Franklin. I should say that first time. My name is Franklin. My supervisor is Professor Joy. That's him. Okay, he's not here today. Right. So basically, this is going to be the overview of my presentation today. I'm going to start with the introduction. In the introduction, I'm going to tell you about what actually is the curiosity and a little bit of base foundation about the research. I'm going to look at the problem statement, the aims and benefits of the research. Then I'm going to look at the objectives. What are the objectives of the research, along with the research questions. And finally, we're going to look at the conceptual framework. What is a concept? This is the word that I learned in the seminar. What exactly is a conceptual framework? Right? And then the research methodology. And I will update you on what we have done so far for the semester 1, which is not much, okay, but just one slide now to show you what we have done. And our planned activities for semester 2, right? Okay. Question: how many of you own a smartphone? How many smartphones?
Can you?
I think it's a dumb question. Right? I'm sure every one of you in the room have a smartphone, right? Okay. Let me ask you: how many of you have more than one smartphone? Yeah, two. I have more than okay, how many of you have feature phone? You know what a feature phone is? That without a smart, even the non-smartphone. How many of you got a feature phone? Yes. One? Only one person. Okay. All right. Now, how many of you have made a transaction using your smartphone recently, last three? Other than tickets, right? Trading. Yeah, package trading. Let's call a number. For a number, amazing. Okay, that's good. All right, so I'm going to show you a video. It's going to tell you about actually what is all M-commerce is all about, and where is the thing, and from where I got the curiosity, right? Okay, right. I want it to work. This is fantastic.
The rise of smartphones is creating smarter consumers, creating more opportunity for smarter marketing. Smartphones are always on, always with us, and always connected. In 1 week, we browsed the internet, used a search engine, watched a video, and connected with our friends, all on our smartphones. But that's info you might already know. Here's some you might not. We're using smartphones almost everywhere, even while consuming other media. Smartphones have become such an important part of our lives that many of us will give up high heels, cable TV, even chocolate, just to keep using them. They're becoming important to our shopping habits too. Smartphones have become the ultimate shopping companion, transforming us into more savvy consumers. 79% use a smartphone to help with shopping. In fact, 70% of us actually use our smartphone while in store. We use it to find retailers, compare prices, get coupons, read reviews, and check to see if something's in stock. Which leads us to buy. Nearly 3/4 of shoppers make a purchase as a direct result of the info we got from our smartphones, either in store, online, or on our phone. Our new mobile shopping habits are adding up to big spending across the board. And where do we do most of our shopping? Usually in our own backyards. In fact, finding local information is one of the most popular smartphone activities. We're using our phones to find everything from the nearest pizza place, to movie show times, to finding the nearest store that carries the item we're looking for. And 88% of us use that local information to take action within a day, whether to call or visit a local business. Today we use smartphones to stay connected, to keep us entertained, to search for information on the go, and to make us smarter shoppers. And we're going to be doing a lot more of this, creating more opportunities for marketers to connect with their customers. Don't miss the mobile movement. Mobilize your marketing to reach the new smartphone consumer.
Okay, today everybody uses mobile phone in the shopping process. Okay? Basically, it's been found that a lot of times actually people use mobile phones when they are in the shop itself. And today what happens is retailers are taking advantage of that particular attitude of customers. In many retail outlets, what they do is they have an opportunity where the customers can browse in the smartphone which aisle the product is. Especially if you go to US, they have that. If you go down there, you can. In fact, last year during the holiday season, they had a special app developed just for that particular period of time, where you download the app and you walk into a Walmart and you can actually which aisle this particular product is there. You can use the smartphone to shop. So a lot of actually retailers are using this particular advantage as an advantage. Now, but basically we find that in Malaysia a lot of things are not being done. So that is part of it. So okay, M-commerce definition. M-commerce is described as a subset of e-commerce, which includes all the e-commerce transactions carried out using a mobile phone or mobile or handheld. Okay, so the M-commerce is actually a subset. E-commerce is basically done on a computer. All right, and M-commerce is done on a mobile device, especially a smartphone. Okay, now according to this little bit of research from where I derived the basic thing. So what I was told is you have to have one particular research from where you base your entire research on, okay? The key research. So according to MCMC, which is the Malaysian Communication Multimedia Corporation, they say that as of March 24, there are 43,243,000 handphone subscriptions in Malaysia. That is 43 million phones in Malaysia, smartphones. Okay? Our population is only 29 million, and that means we have 144% penetration of handphones in Malaysia, which means everybody's got 1.5 phones, right? So it's about right, everybody's got 1.5 phones. So there be 3 people who got 2 phones today. That's the mobile, what you call mobile penetration. Now, out of this, we find that 53% have a smartphone. Out of this total number of phones, 53%. So we have one of the highest smartphone penetrations in the world, especially in Asia, okay? In Malaysia. Okay? And now if you look at this graph, it's also taken from the same research. It says that it shows you the green is the feature phone, the feature phones that you use. And then you find that over the last 10 years, last 4 years of 2010, the feature phone has been dwindling, and slowly the smartphone has been increasing. And if you look at this graph, it tells you that feature phone smartphones have increased over almost 4 times. The usage of smartphones have actually increased about 4 times over the. So now 2016, the data might be a bit different probably. This was taken from 2014. Okay? So basically, 50%, more than 50% or 60% of the population in Malaysia have a smartphone, right? Okay, a question. So smartphone users, another fact is Malaysian smartphone users on an average spend 187 minutes a day, 3 hours on a device. I think for some people it's even more than that, right? Isn't it? More than 3 hours on a device. Okay. Now, what do they do at that 3 hours? What do these people do in the 3 hours? Social network, How much of the time is used for shopping? Okay. Right, so we really don't know. This is one of the things that I would like to discover in my system. Okay. All right, and another interesting fact is 35% of Malaysians use the smartphone as their only way to access the internet. Now, according to Google, this is the highest in the world. This is the highest in the world. 35% don't have a computer, don't have any other way, only use a smartphone to access it. So this is very powerful. So smartphone is playing a very powerful role, basically, so if marketers are able to engage with the clients, with the customers through the smartphone apps today, it's going to be a very huge business, basically, right? And there's another thing is, most of these people using smartphones and connecting it to the internet are mostly in the rural areas, not in the urban areas today. So this is one way that people, the marketers or retailers are able to reach out to them, to those people are in the rural areas. Okay. Globally, 39% of all e-commerce transactions are from mobile. 39%. So that's a huge increase over the period of years today. And in Malaysia, it's not there yet. It's not there at 30% yet. Out of all the e-commerce transactions, the mobile part of it is not at 30% yet. Now, the problem statement is this. Even though the smartphone ownership in Malaysia has constantly seen a steady growth and has increased 4-fold, but mobile commerce is not growing the same rate. That's the curiosity, right? I'm curious to know why there are a lot of people have got smartphone, but not many of them are purchasing, using this smartphone. But they are using it to shop. Now, shopping is different. What you do, what happens is basically when you're in a shopping center, you use your smartphone to check prices. Okay, there's a new term for that, So they call it showcasing. They call it showcasing. Showcasing is going to the shopping center and looking at a product, and then you checking the price elsewhere. Now this has become a threat for a lot of retailers also, right? Because you're coming to shop, and then you don't buy there, you go to some other place to buy. That's becoming a threat. So, and why? This is the fear. I want to know why is it that many of them are not using their mobile phones to shop, but they are shopping. What happens is they use the mobile phone to browse, but they go to the internet, they go to their laptop and buy. they purchase. What is the reason? That's the reason I want to find that out. Another thing is multiple devices. Consumers tend to browse for products and prices on the smartphone, but then make the final purchase on a different device. So I would like to find out why. What is the reason? Why is it they do that? That is the problem. Okay. The aims and the benefit of the research. The aims is to explore these problems and study the challenges and the opportunity of e-commerce in Malaysia. The benefits basically is for the online retailers. So the research, or the information that I get from the research will benefit online retailers, online marketers, system developers, and owners of mobile shopping or app shopping sites. Okay. Objective of the research, okay, the main objective is to study the challenges and opportunities of mobile commerce and identify the main factors that influence purchases on mobile devices from Malaysian consumers. Okay, that's the main objective of the research. There are a lot of sub-objectives. Now, it helps to achieve the following to study the types of products and services that Malaysian consumers mostly purchase through their mobile devices. Okay, I was recently listening to an interview by radio station by Lazada, the CEO of Lazada. His name is Hans. What's his name? Hans. Okay? Now, do you know which is the most purchased item online in Lazada? The last couple of years, the last 1 year, the most purchased item. It has increased. I mean, you talk about a lot of products there. The sudden surge in the increase of that product. Can you tell me what product is sold online? People are buying online. Electronic item, handphone item. No, it's been there, but suddenly it's gone down. Electronic items has gone down. He says, Anything else? Household products? No. Luis? Fashion. Ladies? Pardon?
Baby and babies.
Clothes for babies, is it? Yes. Actually, it's diapers. You believe that or not? Diapers is the fastest selling product in Lazada now. Amazing.
It's cheaper than
Probably. This is things that I like to find out what actually is, what drives the kind of consumer motivation to buy diapers over the online.
Well, what kind of diapers?
For kids? Yeah. For kids. And another thing, like what you said, another market that's very grown is the children's items, children's clothes, children's clothes. People are finding it's cheaper to buy online rather than going to the shop and buy.
I am from India, but when I come here, I just now, I have been just 1 year. I have been here, but I heard a lot about Lazada.
Lazada, yes. Okay. Now, online marketing, there's another company called Rakuten. How many of you heard of Rakuten? Okay. Rakuten. Yeah. They will probably definitely have got anything online. Okay, Rakuten closed shop actually in Singapore and Malaysia. They are downsizing. They're from Japan, so they're downsizing. So online marketing, online business is not very good for them. But Lazada has increased. Okay? According to him, mobile purchases have increased over this year. Okay? So my idea is to find out what is the increase, what kind of thing, and what drives mobile purchases. Okay, and to study the effects of mobile marketing. Now, a lot of times we get a lot of advertisements on your mobile phone. How many of you get mobile advertisements? How many of you? Never. So, you block it. You block it, right? So, the question is, all this amount of money that is spent on advertising, mobile advertising, is it going to waste? How are mobile, marketers able to engage with this? Okay? So this is the questions that I want to ask my research. Okay, and I mean the results could probably help them to understand better. See, in other countries, there's one interesting thing I found, like share with you. Like in some countries that I've been to, like in Australia, New Zealand, and also in India, when you walk into a shopping complex, you get an alert on your phone saying that Adidas 50% discount. Have you ever seen that? You don't get that, okay? So they use mobile marketing text very beautifully. Okay? So you walk into a complex and then you get an advertisement saying that, on your phone. So they know on the 5th floor, Adidas is giving offer. So you walk up to the 5th floor, powerful, but they don't do it in Malaysia. So I want to know why. What's the reason they do that? They have it in India, right? I know. All right. So, and study the features of the mobile phone. So look and see whether is it because of the mobile devices, the size is too small, the screen size. I want to know whether this is the one that is actually causing the problem. Why mobile people are not purchasing for the mobile devices. And we also look at the touch points. Okay, there are a lot of touch points along the way from the purchase process, from the time, the intention, right up to the purchase. So look at the purchase touch point to see whether all these touch points are motivating the consumer to purchase the product. Okay, like design of the mobile sites, apps. Okay? And challenges to adoption of mobile commerce. Is it cultural? What are the things that are actually stopping people from using the mobile device? Is it they're not sure of giving the credit card details? All this information is what I like to cover. Determine the potential and the scope of mobile commerce in Malaysia, and to gain more information in the area of mobile shopping. Okay. The research questions followed with my objectives. The same questions. I have 7 objectives. We'll have 7 it should relate to your questions. Okay, conceptual framework. From these questions, I have my analysis. Okay, this is here talks about whether price is a determining factor for people to buy over mobile devices. Is it mobile advertising? Does it motivate them, to buy the product, or is it the features, the design, or the mobile site itself? Apps, because done it. Many people like to access. They don't like to download an app. For example, if you want to buy some product, you don't like to download an app, but you like to go to the mobile site, and that's better for them because they already got too many apps downloading with it. So yeah, so basically, so these are the questions that I like to ask in my research. And then perceived risk. Risk is a factor that really stops people from buying online. Convenience. A mobile retailer with a mortar store is, if let's say a mobile retailer has got an actual store, actually enhance the shopping experience. Right? So basically, it's, and then cultural differences with that. So based on this, I have a mediating variable. I also thought this to come up with a mediating variable. I was told that if you're doing PhD, you must have a mediating variable. David told us that. So we have to come up with mobile internet speed, and then the final one is a dependent variable, which is the mobile purchase on the e-commerce. So this is going to be my conceptual framework. Of course, I think I will keep on changing it a few times, until we get it done right. Okay. Research methodology, I still haven't really gone through it completely yet. Okay, so it's going to be a quantitative. I'm going to do questionnaire. You're going to have like about 500 to 550 people, and it's based only on client value. Okay, so that's going to be the scope. It's only going to be the client value, and it's only going to be those people who have got a smartphone, right? So basically, that's going to be the scope or the limitation of my survey. Now, that's all on the research proposal. Now, update on activities that I had for semester 1. Semester 1, I attended the workshop for PhD students that I was talking to you about in November. And then I met up with supervisor 3 times to discuss the research proposal. Okay, a few times I keep on changing it here and there. So okay, and submitted a research proposal. I received approval from the supervisor, and then I applied for my brain. Okay, so now was good of submitting it to them. Yeah, my brain is the Malaysian government is giving us money to try to do our PhDs. Yeah.
Only for Malaysians?
Only for Malaysians. They want to have how many? By what? 60,000 PhDs. Okay, I downloaded 20 articles of publications on mobile commerce and mobile marketing. Okay, which my supervisor is not enough. Okay. Now, 20 is not enough. The challenges that I have is this basically, I'd share with you. One of the things is that mobile commerce is something that is very dynamic. It keeps changing. Data keeps changing so fast. We have got data from 2014. Now it's 2016. Things have changed. I don't know. Maybe mobile commerce would have overtaken e-commerce. Then my research question also does not exist anymore. So I don't know. That's the challenge I have. Number 2 is there's not much of academic research up to date. I'm talking about the latest academic research on mobile commerce today. So I got to rely a lot on what we call conventional research, right, done by a lot of other companies. And I think basically I have to look at both conventional research and academic research and merge all of them together. That's going to be what the challenge that I have. What we're going to do this semester is my supervisor told me to download and read 50 recent articles of research in the areas of mobile commerce, mobile shopping, and mobile marketing. Okay, and then tabulate all the articles, put it all in a table. 50 articles, put it in the table, and then list all the research gaps. So each one of it, who's the author, and what are the key points of it, and then write down all the research gaps in each of the articles. And then what he said is, you look at my hypothesis, how where you get the hypothesis. Your hypothesis should have come from all the research gaps. So you told me to read the research and modify the research question that I have. So from the research gaps, I have modified the question. And it showed that the hypothesis development is based on the gaps. So this is what my target is for this next semester. And he told me to start working on chapter 2. Okay, so hopefully with all this and with the motivation and and the encouragement from the university and my professors and lecturers, I'll be able to get it done within the stipulated 3 years, 3.5 years. I don't know.
3.5, 4 years.
4 years. Thank you so much. Any suggestions? Yeah.
One question. You said you mentioned the study from 1992, whether the sample size of 500 to 1,000 is sufficient, right? But we are now in 2016, and I think individuals or markets have become much more heterogeneous, right? So that whether that is still a valid sample size. Have you found anything on that which would confirm that still 5 years?
Yeah, talk about this, right?
5 is very good, 1,000 is excellent.
Okay, this is from like what you mentioned is 1992 survey. I have not found anything that's latest. Probably I might have to look at and see, is this really valid a question? It's a good question. Whether it's really valid or I need to step it up to 1,000 to make it a bit more better, the results will be better. I'll have to work on that. Thank you.
I've got a question actually. Going back to some of your variables, where are you getting the data from? Are you planning to base the whole of your research on the one survey? There's a lot of stuff there, you see.
You look for this one?
Yeah, where are you going to get the data from about prices of things, the mobile advertising?
Okay, this basically going to be a question.
Thought about where you're going to get the source of your data.
No, basically it's going to be questions. I don't ask people like, okay, you get mobile, like the questions like I asked you, you get advertisement on your phones. How many of you have bought, with the advertisement? So from there, you get whether, the mobile advertising has an impact on their purchase process.
But see, that is going to be subjective in a way. So, are you going to actually look at the objective data? Because, for example, the amount of mobile advertising that's actually going out, you would need to make sort of to understand, put it in the context and the features of the mobile device. Some of this stuff needs to be objective, rather than just purely what people are telling you on the questionnaire. You need some objective data foundation that we suggest to make the thing more solid, because just thought. And some of that data is quite difficult to get hold of, actually. So I don't know if you thought about that. Maybe you want to discuss that.
Okay, I could get data. Like, you talk about advertising. I could get information about how much money has been spent on advertising on mobile devices. Those information is possible for me to get. I can even sit down with companies like Lazada, or some other online companies and find out how much money they're spending and see what is the ROI. Are they getting back the kind of result? And is this marketing that they're doing?
It's useful to put your survey within the context of some more objective.
So I could get information from here. Okay, let's say Lazada guys tell me that okay, they spend X number ringgit on advertising and they get back so much response today. I will correlate that with the response from the users.
Interesting. And one other thing I'd just like to mention, I was reading in the Financial Times only recently, it's funny you mentioned this, that there's quite a movement now for people to buy non-smartphones. There's a sudden resurgence, and there's a lot of celebrities now doing it. There's a sudden resurgence of people are really fed up of all the advertising hassle. And all of a sudden, the number of feature phones, not smartphones, the sales have started, and specialist things have started to rise massively in Europe. Now, it probably won't happen in Asia, but it's an interesting development, you know, a kind of reaction to what's happened before. But
that's quite interesting.
Have a look at.
Yeah.
Overload. Very good. Very good.
Any other questions, suggestions? Okay, no other thing. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. The beauty of Mr. Franklin's work is you could really feel his curiosity, passion, and eagerness of this topic, as well as getting his PhD. The PhD was not the main reason. The main reason of this research, but his passion about this work and finding solution for these problems. Thank you very much. Your presentation was very impressive. Thank you very much. So I would like to invite second presenter, Ms. Lee Polly. And she's also PhD in bioscience, and she's almost finishing her study. She's our last year student. I hope you enjoy from her finding as well. One more thing is please fill out the evaluation form. If you have any suggestion about the next colloquium, please share with us. For the next colloquium also we are going to have your presentation, also some industry talks as well as thinking about to give you talk about art of writing, thesis writing. It consists of some tips and skills for your thesis preparation and also that English skill that you need for your writing. And if you have any other suggestion, please share with us. Definitely, we are looking at the quality of colloquium that should be useful for you when you're spending your time coming with us. And if we can do it, I'm also thinking about having a visiting program. I'm not too sure, but I'm thinking about it. If you have also suggestions in this regard, we can have this activity for you for next colloquium, which is some time in July. And again, also other our PhD student also must come and join us. We have a partnership session together. Mr.
May I borrow your
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dipali, and I'm PhD biotechnology student. I almost completed my PhD, so it's not a progress report for 1 or 2 semesters. It's my whole thesis, actually, with all of my objectives and results and everything. So, my topic is expression and identification of stress-induced genes in rice using geriatric PCR. There are some scientific terms which I'll explain later, but hope you guys will know about rice. Everyone eat rice, and then you will be thinking a question that what to research on rice. We have basmati rice, we have all fragrant rice, all these things. But this rice is going to finish one day if you won't settle it down. Like if you won't keep it, eat it properly, the growth properly, one day it will finish for sure. So we have to keep the rice research going on, and we have to maintain the yield of the rice. That means as the population is increased, of course the rice, every one of us need rice. It's our daily food. So that's what I'll be doing, the molecular work on rice. It's on the molecular scientific project. So any terms you don't understand, I have made it simple to understand everybody. So if you don't understand, just let me ask. So just simple introduction on rice, that everybody knows it's the most basic food for everyone. And in Asia, we are like, as almost 60% of population stays here, we are the most consumers of rice. So if rice is finishing, we will be the sufferer maximum. Second thing, but how it is going to finish or how it is affecting. So because of some environmental stresses, that is, if there is no proper water, or there is no proper soil, right, the salty soil, or UV radiations, all the factors affects the rice production. And it's not affect just a small amount, it affects in a huge amount actually. In millions hectares, rice has been affected because of these environmental factors. So we have to work on that. So as in my research, I'll be working on 3 main factors, that is the UV, drought and salt. The drought is the lack of water. So I have concentrated on these 3 factors. So what was the problem statement? Problem statement was 200 million tons of this rice is getting lost. Like the production, like we just grow and the growth is not perfect. The plant dies in the middle of the plant, middle of the height, middle of the age. 200 million rice we lost because of these environmental factors every year. So if you see after 50 years, if you lost this much, of course rice is we are losing, but population is increasing day by day. So we need to cover up this point. Second thing is, these environmental factors, it cannot be predicted. Any natural disaster happens or anything happens, we cannot predict. This land is going to get earthquake or all this thing. So we cannot predict this. We can only develop the rice varieties. Of course, you can't predict all environmental factors. You can't save enough water, or you can't save the salt, all this thing. in this area, very less research has been done. As I show you in my literature review that you all are working on this. And we can actually develop a new rice varieties, but there is not enough data. The rice variety we can develop which can withstand these environmental factors, but the data is not enough just to produce like hybrid varieties and all these things. So we have to read thorough molecular studies of all these things to develop a new rice variety. This is my literature review. So the main institute is working with IRI, that is International Rice Research Institute. That's short for IRI. They are actively working on these environmental factors, especially on the soil and water, with the help of US and Australian government. They have, actually I have tried applying that for one postdoc, so I know they have that funding. By 2050, the prediction was the rice need is going to increase by 50%. That means what rice we have today, it's going to increase by 50% in the future. But as per we see, environmental factor, the rice production is going down day by day. And some of the rice varieties, these has but complete research has not yet done. Completely withstand. The yield is very low. If they have some varieties which can withstand in less water or salt or UV, it's not 100% yield. It may be they get 30 to 40% and other things lost. And some of the databases like the genes database and all what is molecular, it is available online, but the exact function of the genes, how it affects with the rice, all these things has not been studied here. So this is the rice plant. If you see, it's healthy plant, but this all the factors it affects this plant, like UV, heat, cold. This are the environmental factors. If you have a lot of heat, your plant can't withstand in that heat. If you don't have water, it can't withstand. Rice field, of course, need a lot of water, and then UV radiation and other all factors, it affects your plants. So this was some disaster. I have just shown how the rice field actually get. You can see the rice and all it's already dried up. You don't have rice anymore there. So this all I just took from some institute what they're doing the research in the field. So this is on molecular level. I have what 3 factors I have studied: salt, water, and UV. I have highlighted few points for you what you can understand towards like the growth rate, photosynthesis, and all get affected because of these factors. Of course, there are so many molecular level also, like the carbohydrate level, the nitrogen level, it also get affected. And maximum times, the end result is always the plant die, end of these stress factors. So there won't be any more from the rice plants. So from all these problems, it means now our agenda is to develop a new rice variety which can withstand with these environmental factors. But it's not 1 or 2 days work or 1 year, 2 years. You have to do thorough molecular research on it. You have to know all the genes are present in that, and then only you can develop a new hybrid variety. In Malaysia, they take 7 to 10 years to develop a new rice variety as per their research progress. And everywhere, maybe some US government or they have, you think they take 5 to 7 years. So that's the time they need to develop a new rice variety. So from my point, I'm working on Malaysian rice variety. Okay, as in my project, some of the data I cannot disclose because of it's open forum and it's NDA contract. So there will be rice variety, they want some of the results. But I just worked on the Malaysian rice variety. So from that I have studied, I have tried all these stresses given to the plants and all this. So I have 4 objectives, main objectives. First thing, how this affects physiological changes of the plants. Outside, what you can see by eyes, how it affects. Second thing is how their molecular response. At the molecular level, what all the genes are all get affected, that I have studied. Third was, I have developed some new sequences, which in future people can just take my data and use that sequences for their further researches. The name is that it's a molecular marker. So that I have project of them are listed end of my results. And then we have identified the identity, like how much percent it affects those genes, how many percent it affects to the plant, whether it got activated after treatment or it got deactivated after treatment. All these things I have studied. The limitations of my studies was based, I cannot work on the farm because it's a PhD project. So first thing. Second thing is I won't be comparing several varieties. Just Malaysian variety I have. There are few other techniques. The techniques in my title you see pediatric PCR, that only one technique I use, but there are other few techniques which I didn't use, or I'm not going to compare all those results because these are the quite costly techniques. And then I'll be having short sequences, not all sequences, because it's not possible for one person to sit inside the lab and do all the gene sequences. It's quite a huge number of data. So I'll be getting a few number of genes. So my objective, this is my overall methodology. This was my plan. I did that. I researched the treatment to it, like whatever the phases in the farm, like without water, I tried to grow them. With the UV stress, like UV giving to the plants in lab, I tried, and with the salt also. After that, I have done as molecular steps, RNA extraction, CDNA synthesis, pediatric PCR to get my genes. For knowing the genes, you run the gel. That's the gel pictures you can see. You run the gel, and all the small lines are the genes. This methodology, and later you do the sequencing of exact DNA sequence of that gene. So after that, we do the bioinformatics test. So this is the total methodology I elaborated, like what all the how I collected samples. Of course, I didn't disclose it, what samples, and then how done, because there are a few steps you can't just throw the rice on the field and do plantation. So there are a few steps that's called activity design. So we should have to follow when they do the field. Then what are the time duration I followed? So salt, drought, and water stress, UV stress, and all cell processes, what I said earlier. So the techniques are used, which I said pediatric PCR. Why I selected it, first thing, it's very cheap in the market, very easy to use. And this is the recent techniques came just in 2000. So people are still learning out of it. And the good thing is, once in this technique, it hits all the genes act together. When you can see other techniques, hybridization, of course, in the industrial level, they are using that, but it's quite very costly. And it doesn't hit all the genes at a time. Like if you want to give water stress and get all the genes out of it, pediatric PCR is the best techniques, which I follow. So after this was my methodology, so I'll actually go on the results. So as I had a 4 objective, so this is my results of first objectives, which you can see my plans. This was how I give the stress, first duration, second duration. This is general data because I had a very big data, which is almost 160 pages of my thesis. So I just contracted in few slides. So you see the plant is almost like dying. And when the stress is increasing, the last part you can see it's already half dead, like half turned around. So this is what 3 stresses I got, and I had to their all data, like how their shoot, ruthless, their colors, and their plant weight get affected because of these factors. The second result, I just put a picture for you guys. So this all, actually you can see this was my control, where I have a lot of genes. This, as I said, online is gene, all genes. And after treatment, this all lines you can see, those genes got activated, which were not present in the control. So those genes affected by this all stress treatment. I have sequence all these things. Of course, I didn't put the data, which I can't put. So I have sequence and I have all those sequence of DNA. Out of all this, I got 9 genes actually to study, which one wasn't effective, so I deleted from my studies, and 8 I have concentrated. So this is the result of all my 8 genes, which one I have found out from the dot stress, 2 from the salt stress, and 5 from the UV stress. The effect of those genes, you can see the description. This is the locus name. The meaning of locus is inside the gene where it's hit actually, like where it's having the changes. That's we call locus inside the gene. So it's written like where and all it affected. Like somewhere it affected photosynthesis. If first you see a P cytochrome F, it's affected photosynthesis, all these are scientific terms. So this is my total data. Our 8 genes, I have found out that this all the genes affected by this all the treatments, all things. And my fourth objective was to learn how much this gene affected inside the rice cell. I know this genes affected rice cell, but how much? Whether it got activated or it got deactivated, whether it was present before the stress or whether it was absent. So all these things, there is a protocol in my methodology, last protocol that's called qPCR. That is PCR, where we study the quantitative studies of gene. So I have found all the genes were expressed, that is got activated after the stresses, and the stress was almost 2 to 6 times than the control samples, then the samples I never treated. So those was my results. Any doubt so far? It was almost really down. This was my last objective, like the final step of my results. In future, I still need to study furthermore, or maybe last conclusion points of my studies, which I'll be doing finishing in next 5 to 10 days maximum. And the future work, of course, in this work you can do a lot, because as I said, I have done in lab work. The further we can do in the field, we can grow the field. I can use these genes. I can do the cloning, insert these genes inside some rice seeds to make it like acceptable those environments. All these future works can be done. So this was my project schedule. From the beginning, I started my work in 2013. Of course, I joined in the April semester, but I started my work from November, struggling with my proposal. And my deadline was April, I think, which I'll reach it by next month. I'll be finishing my thesis right now. I had done one publication, which was ISR, and I had done a conference in Vietnam, that was international conference. And this will be my upcoming 3 publications, which I'll be doing in this month or maybe next month, whether it gets accepted. It's in the proceedings. So that's all.
Any question, please?
200 million tons we are losing every year.
Yes.
Globally.
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 Of course, this whole work I just studied on the globally. So Malaysian rice variety, the data everywhere you can use. It can be used for the any rice variety. So all data is the globally.
But then you said there was no research done on that.
They know the environmental factor. This is affecting, but they don't know if it is affecting, what work to do, how to stop it. So we don't have anything to stop it right now.
And the last question would be, because you're looking only at Malaysian rice types, right? So how much can we say what your conclusion is we can apply to other rice types?
Yeah, because I have compared the results with there is a data and CBI and some rice in the project. So the genes which I have found out, the function of that gene is similar to other rice varieties also. And 90% all genes will be similar. Because the species is different, but the genes will be similar. Like if I have hemoglobin, you also have hemoglobin. So sometimes it will be same. So it affects in the same area.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So very interesting presentation. You could see her smile because she already finished it. She's done almost her PhD. And for those that are finishing and for those that are starting the study, please tomorrow attend our NGS session that I share with you some hints, tips, and some of the procedure that you need for your graduation, why you are, and also for the beginning of research work. Okay, our next presenter is Akalpita. Miss Akalpita, also from Bioscience Department. She's also finishing her study. She's a PhD student. And also thanks Dr. Suma, the head of department. She's here to support them. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So, Prasad has mentioned, when I'm finishing up my PhD and on my write-up. So, my project, which is it's basically the topic is on the development of wholesale bacterial biosensor isolated from wastewaters by using a recombinant DNA technology. And it's a big word, I can understand. Basically, what this is the project is whole about is on wastewater treatment. Right now, the scenario, the world scenario is like this, that the amount of water that we have is not so much for drinking. So everywhere from the first world to developing countries, everyone are struggling to have new technologies developed for treating this wastewater. Like in Australia, you can see the wastewater over there, they have been treating it and using it for drinking purposes. That's how they're supporting their economy. So I will be focusing on the Malaysian scenario, and Malaysia, it is a developing country too, and it has a population, like a humongous population, which has to provide water. So water is actually a basic necessity that we have. And Malaysia, you can see there is a report from 2015 from the Sun that it states that the pollution level of water has shut down their wastewater treatments. And this is mostly because of what the report says is the amount of ammonia has increased, that the treatment plants cannot treat this ammonia, so they cannot use any of the facilities. So, as you can see, the chief executive of National Water Service Commission, he himself has stated that more than 90% of the shutdown in Johor is between 2012 and 2015 was the Sudakai plant caused by the high amount of ammonia in the Johor. And these are some of the list of the plants which in every state that have been shut down in Malaysia. You can see it's been a lot shut down. So the basic idea is that this shutdown is because of the pollutions that they cannot treat it, so they need a better technology to treat this. This is one more report that you can see that they state that it's a national report that generates every year by Malaysia, which say that there is a slight improvement in water quality, but the water quality level is in class 2B limits. It's a recreational water. This water can only be used for washing. You can use it for cleaning up your floors, but not for drinking. For drinking, if you need this water, you actually need to treat it. Like you have to have a filter at your home, heat it up, drink, all those things. You cannot directly drink this water from the taps. So what is the source of this pollution that we are talking about? The source of this pollution in water is through urban waste that we have. Industrial waste. Industrial waste are humongous, from chemicals to heavy metals. A lot of other waste like agriculture, mining. This all actually gets settled down in your water, water. So there are so many amount of waste that I said from industries and everything, but I will be basically focusing on heavy metals. There are different heavy metals that are found in our environment, from iron, copper, cadmium, arsenic. It's a lot, it's a big list, but I will be focusing on three of this, that is copper, iron, and cadmium. Why I'm focusing on these three metals is, first thing, you can see a lot of Malaysian apartments, housings, they have an iron pipelines still. These iron pipelines are rusted, and this rust is causing you iron pollution. Even copper, they have copper pipelines. There are copper that's deposited. Malaysia has factories and everything, so these coppers are also coming in. So the amount of this iron and copper you can see is like it's in daily consumption. And there's one more thing that people, some of you can think that iron and copper is an essential nutrients in our diet. If you are into dieting and all, there is an essential, like you have to have this much amount of iron, this much amount of copper in your diet. But the thing is, that is a limitation for intake of this iron and copper also. If you exceed that limitation, you are actually causing diseases. iron and copper do cause liver diseases. It can even cause you kidney failures. And for cadmium, it is an element which is actually non-essential for us. And this is from your detergents or other electronic goods that you have. They do have cadmium, an amount of cadmium. And cadmium is definitely in very minute form can cause you a very big grave diseases. Like one of the biggest case was a long time back in Japan, where people were poisoned by cadmium and they bleeded to death. And the disease name, because of that, it's called as Ita-Itai. And in Japan, in Japanese, it means pain. People were literally screaming out in pain. So you can see the source of all this is your domestic and industrial waste. So now all this pollution is that there has to be a way to actually remove it out. Basically, this technology of removing waste from your water or any source has been used in a lot of like technologies like phytoremediation, bioremediation. These are all the technologies that are actually available. Phytoremediation is basically we are using plants. There are various plants. If you go in ponds and all nearby, a lot of places they have small plants in the ponds. This plant actually helps for water purification, but there is a limitation for these plants too. That is a certain amount only they can intake for purification. And once that limitation is crossed, the plant is dead. And there are also other limitations that this plant itself can cause pollution too. There has been reports that they are growing in so humongous amount that they crowd the lake, because of which the oxygen level inside the lake has depleted and has killed the living organisms inside them. So scientists came up with a new technology where they use bioremediation. Bioremediation is a process where we use microorganisms for remediating. And in that, there are different ways of doing it, like biostimulation, bioventing, land farming, composting, bioremediation, rhizofiltration, microremediation. These are different forms of producing bacteria, algae, funguses. Bacteria are different from algae and funguses. Yes, they are different class. So, and basically a lot of technologies like in India, we are using biostimulation processes. Wherein we are using bacteria to stimulate, to remove the contamination. Same goes in Malaysia. The Malaysian system over here is actually using this kind of technology too. So as I said, what is the need for this? Bioremediation. Bioremediation, as you can see, it uses microorganisms. Microorganisms are easily available in our environment. It is available inside us too. So you can actually use them very cheaper. You don't need any kind of big technologies or machine to use this kind of stuff. So it's quite cheap. It doesn't have chemical toxicity because there are chemical methods that are being used which actually add up to your toxic levels in water. So this one doesn't have any hazardous side effects. But as you can see, bioremediation is like only remediating. That is an advance in this also, which now we are into is biosensor. From 1990s, late 1999 around, people have started developing biosensors to remediate waste from water, soil, and everything. Actually, biosensor was first developed for defense purposes. The idea was defense, which migrated to medical, and now they are using it for environmental purpose. Biosensor. Now, what is a biosensor? A biosensor is a device which is used to specific organism as a component. This is a whole definition. What it shortly means is that it's a device, you can say, a microorganism that you are using to actually detect the presence of these heavy metals or any kind of pollution in your water or in your soil. This actually is a real-time detection. So there are various types of biosensors that are available right now. But these sensors are based on enzyme base, which uses luciferase, glycosidase, and protein base. This actually, what is the idea is, now if you have something like a plate or anything you want to visualize or something, this sensor, this thing, luciferase, glycosidase, It's a glowing protein. You can say an enzyme which will glow, like what we have a firefly. But it moves, it glows. These are the genes or enzymes which you insert in your bacterial cells. And once it's inserted, it will glow. And that's where it comes that I'm focusing on GFP, which is a green fluorescent protein. Why I've been using green fluorescent protein is that unlike the other things like an enzyme needs a substrate bind. That's how science goes. But this is much more stable. There is not substrate needed much, and you can much more better real-time detection than luciferase or galactosidase. Okay, now why it was there, like biosensor was now it's been developed, but what was the technology that we had previously which were actually helping us to detect heavy metals or such things is AAS, atomic absorption spectrometer. You can see that, and ICP-MS. These are the actually a very standard equipment till date being used by every industries who are creating, every institute who wants to do any kind of research where they want to see the presence of heavy metals in any kind of system, from soil, water, even for human blood sample, whatever you want, you can actually detect heavy metals from this. So this equipment is actually cost a lot. If you go, it can go from 150 to 200 for basic model K. So that's the cost of the instrument, just the instrument, and maintenance is very humongous for these instruments. Apart from that, you have to have a standard chemicals prepared, which is separate cost for using such instruments. And you need 1 or 2 people minimum continuously monitoring these instruments. It cannot be shut down. So you can see it's very cost consuming and it uses a lot of chemicals too. By biosensor, the benefits apart on this instrument is it's eco-friendly, it's your own bacteria. It's easy to handle. We have a humongous population in our education system who are actually microbiologists, biotechnologists. I can even teach you guys how to do a lab on how to grow a culture. So it's kind of easy to handle. It's portable. You can freeze it, take it anywhere with you, any place you want. You can just take it in your pocket. And then the application, I can just say, it can be applied to humongous amount of cases like diabetes monitoring, which is being used right now in UK. Metal toxic test in humans, then environmental monitoring. Bangladesh is the country which is right now using arsenic biosensor for detection and cancer research too. So the problem statement, now since we have all this technology, why I'm doing this project is the question. Because till now I said it is detected. The biosensor is only used for detection purposes. My statement is, why not to use it for remediating too? Why just prove it for detection? Because it's a simple thing. If you have a computer virus, you won't want an antivirus for it just to detect it. You want it to be removed too. Because the technology, as you can see, there is bioremediation, there is biosensor. That's 2 technology that has to be used simultaneously. First will detect for you, the next will do remediation. What technology I want is that both things are being done together. While it's detecting, it is actually remediating. So to achieve this, these are the basic objectives that I have. First thing is isolating the bacteria from the waste and identifying it, and then constructing my biosensor. Then checking, and actually I need to check for whether my gene of interest is there with the GFP, whether bacteria is still having. Because there is a necessity to check all of this. Because what I'm using over here is an indigenous species which is originally found in Malaysia. So that species, what we say is a wild species. If you see, if it's a lab, for example, if you have a pet dog and a wild dog together, who will obey you? Obviously, your own pet dog will obey you. A wild dog won't obey you. So working with that kind of a wild species is difficult. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I have done it also. So I'm using that wide species of bacteria to actually construct a biosensor. And why I've chosen a wide species of bacteria, because it is been actually surviving in this environment. It can withstand the metal ions. So they do have the gene which I require. I don't have to manipulate it much. Because that is a concern over where people are scared. You're manipulating an organism. What will happen to us? And you're actually asking us to put it into our water system. So here, this thing is actually present in your water system, and it's not doing any harm to you. The only thing I'm just doing over here is just put a GFP, because these bacteria do not grow by itself. You need something for it to grow. That's what the idea of biosensor is. It will grow. So for it to grow, and there's one more thing, that when you do such kind of a manipulation, is that the gene what you're trying to insert, you're forcing it, it will be thrown out. If it doesn't want, everybody has the free will. If I don't want it, I won't take it. Same way with the bacteria. If it doesn't want it, it will throw it out. So that's what I have to check it. The objective is whether it is accepting it or not. So what is the methodology that I'm doing is, first I have to take my sample from the sewage system. Then I have to do a preliminary test on it. I have to know what kind of water is it. And then I have to isolate my bacteria from this. After that, I will do a bioassay. That is concentration, where I can know at what concentration these bacteria are resistant or sensitive to heavy metals. And once I have known the sensitivity, I will only take those bacteria which are highly sensitive to all the 3 heavy metals and find who they are. That is for me. And next thing, after I identify, I will only take those bacteria, or at least one bacteria, which will be like a non-pathogenic. Pathogenic is which is not causing you any kind of disease or anything. So I will take that bacteria, construct my biosensor with it, and then again I will do an MIC, that is a check for it. Okay, so this is my results and achievements. The thing is, I have done an isolation from sewage treatment plant in Selangor and everything. The process of taking a water sample is wherein you have to take a very clean and sterile container. You cannot take any other containers. And the whole thing was transported in an ice pack. You cannot change the temperature or anything. It has to be maintained. I have done some basic physiochemical tests, pH, and everything were done. The results actually show that the water is contaminated. I cannot disclose the exact figure or anything because I haven't published. I think it's an NDA. I could manage to get 25 different bacterial colonies from. I've been growing them in a specific medium. So I've managed to identify 25 different bacterial colonies. I have run an MIC, like I said, from which I would say 20 of them showed very nice resistance to 3 heavy metals. You'll be very surprised once I publish and how resistant they are to heavy metals. And of this 20, I have done identification for the 20. And 3 of them were found to be non-pathogenic. And from this 3, I chose 1 to construct my biosensor. And the one that has been used, selected, actually I have selected on the basis of its being a non-pathogenic. It has been commonly studied for bioremediation process, like it has been used. And there is no major work on clothing for it because it's an indigenous species. So that is like the major background for it. And this is after the construction. This is how it glows. This is the control plate, and that is the test plate. So you can see it's glowing. And this is the basic test that I did again in MIC to prove it that the bacteria didn't take out my gene. It did grow and there are a few things that I have to still do to prove it much more better. I have to recheck with some work. So, and the bioinformatics, which will just take about 10 days and it is finished up and finally stuff. So these are the future works that has been needed. Like you can actually, you can actually do it on field research for this. And in future, you can even extend it to other dynamics of the So this is my contract. I will be finishing up my work by April 2016. So all my stuff and everything. So references that I have and study questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So, anyone, any questions so far?
What is non-pathogenic?
Non-pathogenic are organisms which do not cause you any disease.
That's why you selected that.
Yeah.
So, anyone else? Thank you very much. Thank you. It was a very good presentation. But one difficulty our students, after doing the research, they have and they are preparing the final presentation because they have done many things in the line and the way and too many years, 2 years, 2 years, 1.5. But they have many findings and they want to share with everyone whatever they have achieved. So that's why sometimes it makes the presentation a bit longer than normal. But when you are preparing a presentation, please be concise, and especially when you're doing your Bible session, your presentation must be very concise and not kind of tedious feeling for your examiners. But anyway, you've done very well. We'd like to congratulate you and your colleague. You've done very well. And you said even you use a technical term, which is not really familiar with us. We really enjoy it. Thank you. I want to share with you, if for any reason you can join us in any of our sessions, and you can easily go to YouTube channel. Just now check, they have also 6 viewers as well. So your friends also are watching us. Just easy, just go to YouTube channel and search must Colloquium. And you can see we are here, the live. We are here. And even you can see the other classes, the other sessions we had previously, YouTube channel, and we are free. And the last, but least one is Mr. Faisal. He did his master here at the university, and now he just started his PhD. I would like to invite him to present his progress report. This is the last presentation today. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Hello, afternoon. My name is Muhammad Faizul Magani. I am PhD student in informatics, next supervisor, Dr. Salafan, Penyapan. So today I would like to present my progress report for September semester. September semester is my first semester. So before I present the progress report, I want to introduce my study. My study of development ICT security policy implementation system among department for local authorities in Terengganu. Terengganu is part country in Malaysia. Okay. This is my supervisor, master supervisor and PhD supervisor also. I think he is the good supervisor for me. So this is the overview of my presentation today. Introduction, research location, include a problem statement, project goal, objective of study, research methodology, system design, performance, semester 1, and milestone. Okay, I think you all know ICT security. ICT security, you don't know? Everyone know? No, ICT security. Don't know. Okay, ICT security is the one you secure your asset. Asset main example printer, computer, server. Okay, is document security is document policy security. How government in Malaysia implement secure your department, all asset and document document in department in Malaysia. Okay, this is the location my study. Terengganu State, part in city in Malaysia. My study case, Marang District Council. My implementation, all local authorities in Terengganu. Local authority in Terengganu have 7 local authority. Okay, this security policy, this security of ICT is close related to the asset and information protection. This is because hardware, environment, and software components that are part of the ICT asset in government section. Okay, refer to Information Security Malaysia System ISMS. Survey which conducted by Cybersecurity Malaysia, October 2011, on 10 organization, normal attack awareness 18%, and mail spelling 83%. Okay, so you look the figure. This is the 2010 by Security Malaysia survey for security policy attack in Malaysia, especially government sector. Okay, this figure explains about 11 domain ICT security policy. Government sector must implement 11 security policy in all departments in Malaysia. Okay, this figure explains about the implementation of risk. This is my project goals. The project goal, main goal of the project is to implement a system that will help Marang District Council, MDC, and all local authorities in Malaysia. The setup system will help MDC and local authorities in Terengganu to implement ICT security policy. This is my objective. The main objective is a study by to prototype-based existing ICT security policy standard following the guideline provided by Mampu and ISO 27001. And second, my objective is to collect information and suggestion on ICT security policy in management of ICT at MDC. And third, to create document on ICT security policy. This can be used generally by Information Technology Department, especially by MDC methodology. This is methodology I use. DP application development RAD strategy. I was collect the data for 6 sessions. Session 1 is designed to capture the response demographic. Second, and until 5, development and maintenance policy, management policy, security and policy, access control policy respectively. And session 6, design measure the ICT security compliance among staff. This is overall my information system development methodology. Okay. I build the ICT security policy compliance system I developed based to web-based and mobile application development concept. This is the concept of web-based application development using web server, web client, and firewall to border firewall and SQL database. This diagram example concept mobile application development. I will develop every application mobile apps. Every application is one application for develop mobile. Every application combine HTML, CSS, JS, HTML, API. This is the happy mobile application. Happy mobile application combination JavaScript, remoting, mobile component, visual force, and personal. These are 5 steps in the life of a cross-platform application. First is develop, integrate, build, publish, and manage. Same thing, figure. Okay, this my performance for semester 1. Okay, semester 1 I just collect data, questionnaire and interview. So I think all students say okay. Okay, this is the my figure milestone SEM 1 proposal submission, supervisor improvement, this analysis data, like data analysis data, result and discussion. Okay, I collect data with 2 tab, 1 questionnaire, 2 interview. Okay, this is the questionnaire analysis. Okay. These are all analysis for questionnaire. The result of study are as follow. 80% staff involved were aware about the ICT security policy. 20% understood the ICT security policy. 30% used the ICT security policy at the basic level. 10% at mid-level network communication and computer services, and 5% using the F1 level firewall security and administration of proxy server. Okay, this is the my planning for semester 2. First, data analysis, development of the existing security policies of study of the existing system, analysis of the current problem, identify system requirement, study of project methodology, modeling of the system, database development, and system development. These are all my milestone. First and finish. First, lecture review, and then identify needs, data collection, data analysis, design, development, testing, monitoring, generate the comprehensive report, implementation, evaluation, and thesis writing. Okay, for announcement, my master project being implement my department, and I've received the Information Technology Quality Award. So thank you MBSD, and thank you all lecturers in MBSD. So this award for state level in Japan. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So any question?
Any question?
Especially about his award. You can maybe share some experience.
So this project you only implemented in Marat district, not for
For last year. Okay, my project.
Yeah.
Okay, so local dating dengan Marat is location for flat data. Because seven operating dengan same thing operation. So I not plan all data from SIG local activity. So this project we implement in all authority in
I see. I mean, it's such a good project. They can have the inputs for the federal level.
Okay, because in Malaysia or different state, different state, different position.
I see.
So
no synchronized.
Yes, I see. But setting basic head.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay. So next. Okay. So that's all, and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance. We had another progressive day, and now I think we can finish the session. And don't forget, tomorrow at 4 p.m., we all gather together. Our management team will come also. We have informal session after you meet with supervisor, because you're supposed to see the supervisor. But at 4 we gather together here, and we finish the next day. But this is a good time for you to talk to other friends, become friend, and we exchange your business card. And we are going to have another session on Friday, which is statistical class, and one presentation. I hope you have time. That's not compulsory, as optional, but I recommend all of you attend, even though they finished the study already. Thank you very much for your patience and being with us today.